Welcome to the Green Living Now podcast. I'm your host, Amy Todisco, and I am here to guide you deeper into the world of green living and holistic health. I'm so happy that you're joining us today for episode 6 with a special guest, Akhil Kaplan. Akhil Kaplan is a board-certified acupuncturist and herbalist from Vermont, my state. And he shares his journey from a nature-loving kid to a tennis career-ending injury, and then to becoming a leading expert in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Today, we're going to dive into the transformative power of acupuncture and how it aligns our health with the rhythms of nature. Welcome to the Green Living Now podcast, Akhil Kaplan. How are you today?
Good. I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And I have to note the beautiful background that's happening behind you. Another fellow Vermonter.
Yep.
So I know you're an acupuncturist who also works with Chinese medicine. Why don't you tell me and the audience a little bit about who you are and how you became an acupuncturist?
Yeah. Okay. I grew up in Massachusetts, but came up to Vermont as a kid. When I was born, my parents had a second home here. They were skiers and tennis players. And so I grew up in these woods and quickly realized that I loved being in nature. And I was the only one in my family that really loved nature. My dad came up here more for that dream of having a second home to play tennis and ski. And that dream that was happening in the 70s and 80s. And I was
Yeah.
more about nature and they weren't. So I got to hang out a lot while they played tennis in the woods alone.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah. And so spent a lot of time in rivers and streams and creeks and looking for creatures. And so I always had this fascination with nature and natural things. So that was sort of the beginning of all this, right? And fast forward to I became a tennis player and competed all over the country and played some international tournaments. And I got a D1 scholarship, went to school and then got hurt.
Mm,
And got hurt to a point where I couldn't play anymore, where it was
yeah.
just too painful. Nothing that I was getting was working. I was at one of the top schools in the country and for sports, and their PT people couldn't help me. And it's funny, I look back, the only thing that ever helped me during that time was my mother took me to this person who did cupping, and
No,
he didn't
I
speak
don't.
any English, and I got cupping, and it really, left its mark on me, no pun intended.
Literally.
But but in all honesty, it really was like, wow, that was profound. And I didn't know anything. I just felt he's saying things in another language. I don't know, and
Wow.
suction. But I think I was always pretty open to experiences, right? So I'm in college, my back hurts. I meet this girl. She becomes my girlfriend for the next 3, 4 years. But during that time, she was like, I'm going to this open house at a Chinese medicine school, right?
Oh,
Now it's
cool.
like acupuncture. She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to
Yeah.
come. So I went and I was like, this looks fun. I loved needles as a kid. I was always just
Oh,
fascinated.
wow.
I had like allergies, so I got all those allergy pokes, and I just always thought it
Oh,
was
I
cool.
see.
I think I even took some herbs that day. There's another seed planted. There's Vermont, there's nature, there's injury, there's
Yeah.
now this exposure to Eastern medicine that I'd already had, but really hadn't incorporated. He and I got into yoga around the same time. I really delved into yoga and I forgot all about Chinese medicine. I was into Eastern traditions. I started getting into martial arts a bit. And then I moved up to Vermont full time at some point, still with back pain. So now
So
I'm coming.
the yoga didn't really help you get
Nope,
rid of the back
nope,
pain.
nope, no, not at all. But
Okay.
I can't tell you that I had a teacher enough to show me real yoga, right? I did have a teacher who was an Indian guy, but he was more of a businessman. I think when I look back, he was
Yeah.
amazingly flexible and could do every pose, but like as a teacher, wasn't really a great teacher.
Mm,
But I was into yoga. I started doing it all the time. I got back into exercising and then I moved up to Vermont and I started doing a work trade with an acupuncturist and had a treatment. And then all that stuff flashed back to me, right? Getting
wow.
cupped, the exposure to all this yoga teaching I've been doing, meditation I've been doing now. And all of it came to me on the table one day. And I was like, this could be a really cool thing to do where I could
Wow.
really incorporate my love of people, my love of Eastern and those traditions that are more antiquated, so to speak, more classical. And like an epiphany, it was like, I'm going to become an acupuncturist. And within 3 weeks, I had applied to 10 schools. So this was in October, only to
Okay.
find out that only 2 schools allowed winter admission. The rest were going to be the following fall. Yeah, I was like, I'm not waiting. I'm ready to go.
Wow.
And off I went. and
So where did
wanted to.
you end up going? Which school?
So I went to a school called Southwest Acupuncture College out in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, cool.
And it was a pretty wild transition. When I was living in Vermont, I was sort of living a monastic lifestyle. I didn't know many people. I only had a
No
few
kidding.
friends. Yeah. I meditated all the time. I was meditating 3 hours a day, doing another hour
Wow.
at least of yoga postures a day, doing social service, doing some marketing consulting for a gentleman here in town. And I gave all that up to go out west because I thought my life should be more difficult. I should be in a position where I should give more. And to give, I need to suffer some to like really know what it means. And
Wow.
anyway, suffer I did. And I kid you not, I got out there. I was so clashed out. I suddenly was living with two roommates who didn't eat like me, who didn't think like me, who didn't act like me, who left the house dirt. It was like
Oh,
chaos.
wow.
I started a master's program in something I knew nothing about really. I remember a really difficult 3 weeks. I didn't love Boulder.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
found
no
it to be
kidding.
quite pretentious. Yeah. Although I loved being outside there in the weather, and I was like,
Mm.
all right, I can like that. And I remember calling a friend of mine here who was a spiritual teacher of mine and not my guru, but a spiritual teacher on our path. And I remember her telling me, I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this. I think I made a big mistake. I
Kidding.
don't think this is what I should be doing. And I just had a panic. When it was that moment, it's a lot of like, we all have that little bit of self doubt, right? And
Oh, gosh.
instead of stopping and observing the self doubt and giving yourself the space to not make it yours, right? And just going, wow, that's interesting. There's self doubt running
Yeah.
through me. Instead, I was in that moment of self doubt and was just like waving the white flag.
Well,
and,
you know what's
uh,
so interesting too is that you said you wanted to have more challenges, and so you got them.
and then I
But then
gave
it
up.
sounds like it was a little overwhelming because it was really different than what you were used to.
I think life was too easy for me. And so I was uncomfortable, like very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And my teacher, she said, nope, you're not going to quit. You're not coming. She's like, there's nothing for you here in Vermont.
Oh
Like
my
what's there
gosh.
is what's out in there. And that's what you're going to do is you're going to see this through. And this is exactly what you're going to do.
You
I,
believed
I,
her enough to know that
100%,
that was true.
100%. I had complete
Wow.
faith in her. Yeah, I believe everything she's ever told me except for one. Long story short, there I am at school. I'd said, okay, I give in, go through school. I was typically a really good student, high school, straight A's. Chinese medicine school was tough at first. And I remember being a little overwhelmed and thinking everyone was so much smarter and so much better than me. And there was this one kid in class, Clinton, who knew so much about herbs his first semester. And I was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Like nobody knows about herbs. This guy knows talking about stuff to teachers and like they're having
And
conversations.
Chinese herbs, not just
No
regular.
Chinese, only Chinese. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
And the competitiveness in me got the best of me.
Mm.
I started like taking notes and making these cheat sheets that I could then go for runs. I didn't believe in studying sitting still. I believe in studying while you move. So I would do that even in high school. I would move around a lot when I'd study. I'd be cleaning something while I studied. So I started running while I studied. And I made these sheets that were big enough that I could see things and I would study 1 or 2 herbs at a time. We weren't even in herbology yet. I just started studying it
Because you were trying to compete with that other guy.
because I knew that he was good and I wanted to be good, not because I wanted to be the
Ah,
best, but because I
okay.
wanted to be one of the best, right? Like I want to be in that Appalachian because I
Yeah.
want to get good. I was like,
Yeah.
if I'm in, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I delved into herbs. I learned about 2 years of herbs in about 6 months, inside and out, memorized. And suddenly it bought his attention and we became fast and furious friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
Totally. And so that changed the entire course of my education. And suddenly I had a knack for Chinese medicine and I got it and it flowed through me and I connected with herbs. And the very first needle I put in, I could feel someone's chi.
No
Nobody,
way.
nobody in my class could do that. And that had to do with all that yoga stuff, right? You
Oh, that
become
was the early
sensitive enough.
preparation.
So then, okay, now I'm going to study the stuff. And I delved into studying. And that's kind of, you started to realize you can't separate Chinese medicine from who you are after a while because it's a way of thinking. It's not like
Oh,
a medical practice, right?
huh. Say a little bit more about that. What does that mean? It's a way of thinking.
So you learn theory, and the theory starts with yin and yang theory, which is
Okay.
basic theory that there's these two balances in life that constantly oppose each other, but
Mhm.
balance each other,
Hmm.
consume each other, yet add to one. Can't live without each other, right?
Yeah.
But are always competing. right?
Interesting.
And
So, did you start off more with the Chinese medicine focus and then the acupuncture was second, or did it come all together for
so
you?
it comes all together because it's all part of the theory. There was no herbalization of acupuncture. Acupuncture was much more based on where it was located. If you had knee pain, you were treating either the knee or the elbow, or possibly something on a bending joint that looked like a knee, like a finger joint. And that's what you would do. You wouldn't
Interesting.
take someone's tongue and pulse unless you were giving them herbs.
So the
Uh,
tongue and pulse part, was that before Mao
oh,
or
yeah. So tongue and pulse
okay.
has long been a part of Chinese medicine. It's been the fundamental diagnosis. It's been one of the major diagnoses is tongue, pulse, obviously looking at someone and then touching someone, palpation. Those are the four major. Are you listening? You're not listening much in Chinese medicine. And in fact, over in China, people that have practiced with Chinese practitioners
Yeah.
often just very few questions, tongue pulse, let's get started.
Oh, no kidding. For folks that are listening that don't know anything about acupuncture,
Mhm.
how do you describe how it works?
There's two ways to answer this because they're starting to prove more and more things about Chinese medicine from a Western standpoint. So there's certainly things now that we can definitively say Chinese medicine increases blood flow.
Okay.
And it's antipyretic in function, meaning it reduces heat. But if you break that down, well, moving blood often cools blood, so that's how you reduce heat, right? So you can break that
Mm.
down to maybe it's just moving blood on the most basic level. Why does everyone ring the bell in my clinic? Do they have to go to the bathroom? Because you're moving blood and water are connected.
Oh,
So
I didn't
people,
know that was a
yeah,
thing.
totally,
People ring the
100%,
bell when they have to go to the bathroom?
all the time. Like I give everyone a bell because generally at some point someone rings the bell and it's like they got to go to the bathroom suddenly. That's part of it. From a Western standpoint, you got anti-inflammatory, antipyretic functions, which means you can reduce fevers and sore throats,
Oh, okay.
right? And Lyme disease and
Oh, no
things that are
kidding.
hot.
Lyme too?
Yeah, things that are hot. It also means things that are stuck that need to move work
Okay.
well. So anything to do with pain has to do with things being stuck.
Mm.
And so acupuncture excels at moving things. And so for things that are pain oriented, including emotional pain, it really works quite well, right?
Huh. And so how would you compare it to massage and energy work?
Well, I mean, it depends on who's doing the massage and who's doing the energy
Mm,
work. The practitioner has something to do with it,
yeah.
maybe a lot. It's hard to say. Medicine wise, you're dealing with things that are going into the body versus something being on the surface versus something being just above the surface. I think this idea that we're energy work, acupuncture works on energy, massage
Right.
works on energy,
Right.
psychotherapy works on energy, right? Like all of it
Mhm.
works on energy. So we're
That's
all
true.
energy workers. Everyone's an energy worker or an energy mover. I mean, if I go
Yeah.
and yell at you, that's going to move your energy,
Right.
maybe in a bad way, but it's going to move it. And
Yeah.
so energy is an interesting thing. I think what acupuncture does is for many of us that are into natural medicine and that are probably listening to your podcast,
Yes.
um, we believe that there's a flow inside of us that's more than just fluid, right? That there's an
Right.
energetic quality to this, that there's some type of spiritual quality, whatever that means. And I think what Chinese medicine does is act on a very physiological level to change things like that. Because your emotions have a lot to do with your physiology.
Right.
Women are a great example of that. During your menstrual cycle, something changes in pretty much every woman,
Mhm.
which is proof that if the amount of blood in your body changes, there's going to be some type of physical and emotional impact,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
that's true. People post surgery that lose a lot of blood certainly are not themselves, right?
Oh,
Physically
that's
and
interesting.
emotional, right?
Okay.
It's very physical. It's not like this super esoteric thing. Emotions aren't like as esoteric as it seems, but Western medicine sort of makes it a little bit more like that. Chinese
Yeah.
medicine makes it much more like, oh, you're yin deficient. Of course you're having these issues. Of course you're scattered thoughts and you can't retain memory. And of course you're having these physical things where you don't sleep well and you're having anxious dreams or nightmares or night terror,
Right.
whatever it is. And so it's much more physical. And I think when you can break that down for a patient, that's really powerful.
Mm.
Massage and Reiki doesn't do that necessarily.
Mhm.
So that's a difference of Chinese medicine. Can we all get results with stuff? Oh, of course we can. Of
Yeah.
course we can all get results. I would personally think of Reiki a lot for more. ethereal things and not physical things,
Yeah.
right? Like I needed to shift my mindset, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm having knee pain, I'm going to go see someone with Reiki. Now, people
Right.
will, and
Right.
that's
Right.
cool. That's not my natural inclination. And I think, whereas massage also, you don't go, oh, I'm so depressed, I'm going to get a massage. You usually go, oh, my back's so tight, or the tightness from depression is what I
Yeah.
want relieved, right?
Yeah.
But then you might feel better and less depressed because they worked on your muscle,
Right. So it's
right?
really interesting. I used to do polarity therapy, which is
Mhm.
based a lot on acupressure, and I would assume in some ways acupuncture too.
Mhm.
I never really resonated with Reiki. I was like, yeah, that's nice and relaxing, but it just never really
Right.
did it for me.
And that's what it comes down to. I think that's actually one of the things that makes acupuncture a difficult practice,
Oh,
is that we are sticking needles in people. Acupuncture is known to be relaxing, right? Most people know it to
but
be
it can be
relaxing,
painful too.
but it can be intense. It
Yes.
can sometimes be a bit painful. It can be startling. The energy, that chi sensation when
Mm,
it comes on can be overwhelming. For some
yeah.
people, especially when they're in an emotional state or a vulnerable state, it can be very
Yeah.
overwhelming. Patients have run the gamut of reactions over the years. I've always told people relaxation isn't the goal. The goal is you being better.
Right.
And sometimes that doesn't feel great at
Yeah.
first, but it gets better and you'll be okay after a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then you might ease into a very nice state. And 80% of patients go into this really blissful state.
Mm,
10% don't because they're
yeah.
just not that kind of person, or they're
Yeah.
just like worried about other stuff, or there's trepidation in their mind about other things.
What are the most common things that you're treating?
Pain is a big thing that people come in for. And that's the nice thing because acupuncture for pain is like, listen, you're already in pain. So
Right.
if I can make this a little more intense, you're probably going to get better faster.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be any worse than the pain you're in. And they're
Right.
cool with it. They're like, do whatever you got to do. All right, come on twice a week. So I treat mostly pain. I mean, honestly,
Which is where you
mostly.
started actually, right? With your
Yes.
back?
Well, that's what I mean, the full cycle of this. So what ultimately healed my back pain was yoga. It was changing my yoga routine and getting a real,
Is
and
that
that,
right?
oh yeah, that changed it definitively. Definitively. And I hadn't been getting Chinese medicine until I had fixed it. But when I was in school, I started having some back pain again. I never had a good acupuncture until I got to school.
Uh-huh.
So the things I treat the most are pain. And that runs, like I said, spiritual, emotional, physical pain,
Mhm.
migraine, stomach pain, pain from cancer, pain from removal of organ, emotional
Mm,
pain, loss of parents, the loss of anything,
yeah.
depression, anxiety, all of that I treat. What people don't know as much, I treat a lot of peripheral neuropathy,
Oh,
a lot of circulatory disorders like Raynaud's, where your hands turn
huh.
white and they're painful.
Yeah.
We treat a lot of autoimmune issues, things like
So like
Sjogren,
Lyme disease you were talking about too?
yeah, things that
Yeah.
act like autoimmune stuff, a lot of digestive disorders. But I treat some interesting things today. Like I treated, I won't give you the Western name, but it's like basically eyelid spasms to the point where they'll close and people
Oh,
can
wow.
walk into walls. Yeah, glaucoma is treatable with Chinese medicine, but I treat a
Oh,
lot of sciatica, back pain, knee
yeah.
pain, hip pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain, tense shoulders. We live in such an active community that obviously
Yes.
there's a lot of pain here. But what I also see a lot of are things where doctors scratch their head, right? We might
Ah,
call them naughty, like KNOTTY, naughty diseases, recalcitrant diseases that are tough to treat. They don't go away easily. I love treating that. And I see a lot of that because what happens is people come to me once they've been treated by me, they might come sooner. But if they haven't been treated by an acupuncturist yet, we tend to fall later in the spectrum of their care. And because of that, we also see some pretty interesting things. Doctors are going, I don't know what the hell you have, or they're going, you need to see a psychiatrist. And they're like, it's not in
it's
my
not in
head.
your
I'm
head.
like, yeah, it's not in my head. I mean, I
Yeah.
treated something today called neurogenic itching, where they don't know why they're itching. They think it has something to do with the nervous system. There's a lot of reasons, but those are the type of things I like to see. And I tend to have pretty good results because we have this framework of diagnosis in Chinese medicine. Like I said, starting with yin and yang, hot and cold, that really help us see a person different. And that's something that
Mhm.
Reiki and massage therapy doesn't offer. Those are the difference. Chinese medicine is a true medicine, not like a healing art. I would call those
Mhm.
more healing arts. This is more of a
Mhm.
medicine, right? This is like
Yeah, that makes
an
sense.
entire medicine in a
So
country.
kind of like Ayurveda would be
100% India,
yeah.
China had Chinese medicine. We have Western medicine. And so I think that's an important distinction. Chinese medicine sometimes falls into that healing. but really it's a
Mhm.
medicine. I think it should be taken more seriously and people should practice it like medicine in the
Yeah.
sense that it's powerful and it can also mess people up. People
Yeah.
want to say, oh, it's natural medicine, but yeah, natural medicine can really mess you up.
And is that because somebody's doing it wrong?
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
your diagnosis is correct, you shouldn't really mess someone up too much. You may not have something work, or maybe they get a little
Okay.
loose stool. If your
Yeah.
acupuncture is fairly correct, you shouldn't mess someone up, right? But
Mhm.
if you're not paying attention in acupuncture, or you're not paying attention to the fact that someone may have emphysema or they're older, like needling near their lungs becomes unsafe,
And
certainly
what
have to.
about, like, interaction with pharmaceuticals? If somebody's on pharmaceuticals, does that
That's a hard
cause
thing to
problems?
comment on without because I can't make a generalized statement. I can tell you that I've personally had, fortunately, knock on wood, no drug herb interactions ever. What
Oh,
I
that's
typically
good.
have people do is spread their meds out from anything Chinese medicine. I also double check contraindication, make sure some of them blood thinners, you certainly don't want to give them something that moves the blood too fast. Things like that, right? I mean, you can have acupuncture on blood thinners and cause someone like a little bleed when you clean them off, and they're
Oh,
not going to
yeah.
bleed out on a blood thinner. But you certainly don't want to do other techniques that may require that type of stuff. Paying attention is important. I just think that's a unique distinction of Chinese medicines. It really is a whole medicine that has a whole framework of thinking, a whole system of diagnosis of herbs, of acupuncture, of bloodletting, of cupping,
Oh,
a whole system.
bloodletting. Wait, wait, wait.
Yeah,
Back up. There's
bloodletting
bloodletting?
and gua sha, like, which is another thing, scraping
Oh,
techniques,
okay.
right? And bloodletting. Yeah, I mean, bloodletting, in the old days, they used to bleed points. Acupoints were bled. And that's when needles are really thick, right? So they bled.
Oh.
As needles got thinner, people weren't bleeding as much. So bloodletting became a separate thing. Bloodletting is really powerful for a lot of things. In Western medicine, they've used bloodletting. They still do, lancing things,
So how much blood are we talking?
not much. A quarter cup of blood would be a good bleed. In China, when they bleed someone, it's probably a quarter cup of blood.
Little?
Significant thing, bleeding varicose veins or bleeding like a big, like here in the West, you bleed like you'd lance like a big cyst or a big like boil or something like that. That's the same thing. That's what I'm talking about.
So bleeding varicose veins is one way of
Of
making them
yeah.
smaller?
Well, varicose veins, if you think about what they are, varicose veins are like when your blood runs into issues of flowing,
Right.
it
It'll
extravasates outside the vessel, and that's when varicosities are born.
Interesting.
So when you see varicosities, which is what happens as people get older
Yeah.
anyways, like you can't
Yeah.
avoid it. There's no one in their 80s that doesn't have some type of varicose vein, most
Right.
likely. That means the blood is slowed down and now it's having more trouble flowing, which is what happens as you get older. That
Yeah.
can
So
happen at a
some
young age too, and that's more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so what does it mean when it's at a young age?
Well, that means you're having
Potential issue?
circulatory. Yeah, you're having circulatory issues, which just
Oh,
means down the road you're gonna have more and more circulatory issues, which could mean heart issues, edema issues. It could be
oh,
all type of issues.
wow.
Then we have gua sha, the scraping technique. The Chinese use water buffalo horn, but
Huh.
it's scraping. I use a jade scraper,
Yeah.
and you scrape and you create this sha, which is that discoloration when you cup someone. It's called sha.
So when you went to school in Colorado, how did you find your way back to Vermont?
A GPS. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't love Boulder, like I said. I did like Colorado. I liked being out west. But the best thing in my life happened my last year in college, which is my daughter was born.
Ah.
And as soon as I had a child, I started fantasizing about Vermont again. So it was like, okay, I got to get back to Vermont by the time she's 4 or 5 when
Yeah.
school starts. I had said to my wife at the time, and she came and visited and loved it here. She's from Wisconsin, so there was similarities in northern Wisconsin to here. And
Oh,
she really
interesting.
liked it. And I was like, just give it 2 years. If you hate it, then I'll leave. I promise. two
Right.
years and I'll leave too.
Yeah.
And I just want to raise a child here. I just think it's
Yeah.
important to raise a child here. It didn't have to
Agreed.
be the Mad River Valley, right? It was important for me. I graduated in 2007. My wife was pregnant, obviously, so she had to miss a year of school. She was also in acupuncture school. We had to
Oh,
stay an extra year, and then we moved back here when Lake was 2.5. And then we stayed. She liked it
yeah.
enough to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
she practices in Waterbury, Vermont.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah.
And had you guys visited before you moved or
Yeah, and we did, and we didn't think we'd come back to the Mad River Valley, but a friend of mine said, "If you're gonna move back to Vermont, you don't move back here. What the hell's the point?" And I said, "I don't know. It's still
It is a
Vermont." She's
pretty
like,
remarkable place, I must
"Right,
say.
totally." And I was like, "All right," and that was it. And we came back. I mean, we had nothing, no money to our name. We had all this debt chasing us. We
Yeah.
had a little baby, and we just
Wow.
went for it. And fortunately, the community, went for it too at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so did you open a clinic right away or
I opened the clinic immediately. Yeah. January 1st or January 4th, 2010, I think.
geez. So this is
Yeah.
now 14 years
14 years here plus, yeah, 2.5 there.
plus
It'll be, yeah, 17 years of practice,
wow.
pretty wild.
What would you say is your most favorite part of it?
Uh, you know, my favorite part is the feeling I have all day long. I mean, honestly, it's just a feeling that I'm connecting into something so deep and so rich.
Mm,
And yet, just on the most mundane level, having very deep and powerful connections with people that are very unique. You don't know the impact of something you might say to someone. You don't know the impact of what going the extra mile might be on someone. You don't know how
yeah.
positive or negative of an impact you can have. And just having ability to be part of that is beautiful. I mean, it's really
Wow.
special. At the end of the day, I never feel tired. I always feel more energized.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
totally. At the end of the day, I feel great and people really appreciate the work because you're generally making people feel better. Even if you don't
Yeah.
help them, they've relaxed during treatments. They felt better.
Wow.
They felt connected. They felt cared for. And you find them someplace to go that will hopefully help.
Yeah.
So it's a special job and something I'm enjoying more than ever now. And as you get older and more mature and that daughter of mine's now 17,
Mhm.
you get more nostalgic and you get more appreciative of the work that you've been given. I'm appreciative that it's not work.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're a perfect example of when you do something that you love, it doesn't feel like you're working.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I've never once been like, "Oh, I gotta go into work to treat people." Like,
Wow.
never.
After all those
17
years, that's
Yep,
remarkable.
never. There's been a
Wow.
few powder days that I've been like, "I'm not coming in till 2."
Right.
And
Understandable.
yeah, 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 I'll
Work-life
still do it.
balance.
I see them all up there, so it's not a big deal, but in all
Yeah.
honesty, I don't know a lot of people that can say that. That's a powerful thing to have something where you really can make a difference in someone's life and in your own at the same time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I feel blessed. And like I said, I'm appreciating that more than ever now. And it's more enriching. And I think I'm a much better practitioner than I was even a year ago because of it,
That's
just because of
awesome.
that deeper appreciation for, and
Yeah.
it's great because you have kids. I mean, it's like now I'm like, oh, my daughter's going off to school. I have a deeper appreciation for her. I really enjoy getting older in that sense.
It's
And the
awesome.
medicine makes more sense because, like I said, I see everything as yin and yang or cold and hot or dry or wet or damp. Things start to make more sense too as you go. You're like, oh, that's what they mean about yin coming into yang. That's happening to me right now as I'm riding my bike or skiing or whatever it is,
Wow. So the principles you're taking are actually in your life. I mean, you're
Oh,
noticing them
yeah.
being
I don't even
demonstrated
cook
by your
without.
life.
Yeah, I don't literally even cook without thinking about it. I probably don't think about the weather without thinking about yin and yang imbalance. I don't look at water flow without thinking about how it's
That's
moving in
amazing.
us. I always assume most acupuncturists feel that way too. I think many of us
Really?
probably feel this way. Yeah. You just see everything different. It's just completely different. The
That is
first
so
day of
cool.
school, my teacher said, okay, so everything you know, yeah, leave that outside.
So
You
this
don't
is a
know anything.
whole new way of
Yeah.
life.
You know nothing. We're going to completely shift your way of thinking. And
Yeah.
within 3 weeks, you're looking at yin and yang everywhere, and you're starting to see it in people, and you're starting to see balance within yourself and imbalance because there's too much
Mm,
yang in this relationship, or not enough
mm,
yin in myself. You
mm.
need the yang of change, the yang of pain, the yang of tragedy, the yang of devastation sometimes to create
Yeah.
that yin.
So,
Right.
I can see that in my own life, having grown up in New York City and felt like a fish out of water. I feel like because of that experience, I appreciate living in Vermont so much more than I would have if I had been born here.
Yeah, that's the yin of Vermont versus the
Yeah.
yang of New York, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
when you're in New York, you have to seek that yin. You have to find that spot in Central Park. You have to find
Yes.
that little
And it wasn't
restaurant.
really present in the 70s.
You
It
know,
was much more so in the 80s, but yeah, the 70s were a crazy time there.
yeah, I bet. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what it is. If we all learn a little bit more about yin and yang, and there's some basic ways of looking at it, we can all live a more balanced life by eating more yin and yang and drinking more yin and yang
Yeah.
and acting more yin and yang and acting with the seasons, right? Like they say what happens in the summer will affect you in the winter. So if you ate a lot of cold, wet foods this
Oh,
summer,
that's
maybe you have a
interesting.
lot of wet, cold, damp sicknesses this winter, like colds and
Wow.
flus and and joint pain and things like that.
So, Akil, for people that don't live near us,
Mhm.
what could you recommend as a resource to learn more about that yin yang balance so that people have some understanding?
I would just say look up
Interesting.
the principles of yin and yang and a description of yin and yang because, I mean, honestly, the simple part of it is this: yin is substantial, yang is ethereal. So
Huh.
yang is that which can't be seen.
Okay.
It's like motion. Whereas yin is that which can be touched and seen. It's like matter. Like it's a
So
subject, it's a thing.
would that be like the body and the soul?
100%. So the body would be
Oh,
sort of yin and then the
yeah.
soul would be more yang. But within each thing, there's inherently yin and yang. You got to
Okay.
remember. So the body has, there's yin organs and there's yang organs, right?
Right.
There's yin organs that stores food,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Right. The large intestine stores food, right?
Yeah.
The lungs store fluid,
Okay.
right? But the large intestine doesn't really store things.
It
It
just kind of process it.
moves things. Liver
Okay.
holds, right? The liver holds blood, right? So it's
Right.
more of a yin organ. You think of heat and cold. Hot is more movement. Cold is not movement. So cold is yin.
Okay.
Hot is yang,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
Men, kind of crazy and active. Young women, more yin, nurturing,
Uh-huh.
right? But are there young women? Yeah. Are there
Of
yin
course.
men?
Or just
Yeah.
aspects of each of
Or
us,
are
right?
there aspects? 100%. I'm masculine in the sense I'm a guy and I got a beard, but I'm much more nurturing based, which is why I
Right.
got into Chinese medicine, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like a part-time stay-at-home dad for a while, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So you have these aspects in you, and getting to know them or embracing them is really important. But those are the aspects of yin and yang. Nighttime would be yin, more
Mm.
calm, more
Mm.
restful, dark.
Yep.
Yang would be daytime, active,
Active. Yep.
right? Right.
Okay.
And then you have sunset, which is yang coming into yin, right?
Mm.
And then you have sunrise, which is yin coming into yang,
Wow.
right? Those kind of aspects. And so
Okay.
you can break that down in many ways, yin and yang in
Yeah.
the body. Fluids are yin, they're substantial, you can touch
Mm.
them.
Mm.
Yang is, other things, gas, air, things
Yeah.
like exactly gas, right? Those are how you break down yin and yang, and getting to know them creates more balance. And the I Ching's all about yin and yang
Yeah.
and all these ways of thinking. It's even based on numerology and the stars and those type of things.
It's kind of a blend of different things
Yeah,
are influencing it.
it's all tied up
Neat.
in these.
I love that stuff.
Oh, me too. Me too.
So so anything on the horizon for the next few years that you are thinking about?
Well, I've incorporated coaching into my practice, which is really
Oh.
fun, and life coaching, wellness coaching. And I've had a year of doing it sort of more or less and have really gotten a lot of good feedback, some positive, some negative, in good ways that has really helped me develop it. All really positive feedback because it's been helpful, right?
Yes.
I'll hopefully be doing some workshops and some retreats here in the valley at the Featherbed Inn, where we can do retreats and workshops about living with the seasons and learning to get
Oh,
to know your
nice.
body better and learning how to incorporate nature into your life more,
Ooh, now you're
right?
speaking
So,
my language. Well, this
yeah,
is
so
my language.
yeah, hikes that would have to do with yin and yang, where we would then
Ooh,
meditate in a yang way and in a yin way and observe
wow.
the differences. And the more you go out into nature, the more yin you become in nature, right?
Very
So
cool.
that's what I want to teach people more about. And that's probably more on the horizon is more of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that would be
So
good.
that sounds wonderful. And so if people want to reach you,
Mhm.
how can they find you?
So the best way to reach me is just going to threemoonswellness.com. And
Threemoonswellness.com. I'll have
yeah, my
I'll have that in the show notes too.
yeah, great. And my phone number is on there, which is
Okay.
802-279-9272. And then my email address is on there as well. So you can contact everything through Three Moons Wellness.
Awesome.
Um, and yeah, I always do free consultations for anybody. So you can always at least check out a little bit about Chinese medicine, learn something, no charge always.
Oh, very cool.
I always say, at the least, it will be insightful. It will be an interesting look at your body and your mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, final question.
Mhm.
What did I not ask you that I should have?
That's a good question. Mm. You did ask me this question. Maybe I didn't answer it totally. You asked me why I do Chinese medicine, which I answered in the sense that the feeling I get.
Yes.
The other why I do Chinese medicine is because I really believe in Chinese medicine.
Mm.
I really believe it can fix a lot of health issues for people if it's done correctly. I really believe I've learned how to do it more correctly than I
Oh,
did
I bet.
17 years ago. And I've treated things better because of that,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm better. I can help you now. I've called patients that I haven't talked to in years and been like, hey, give me another chance
No kidding.
on my dollar. I just want to try this on you. And they
Wow.
come like, sure, it's still no different, blah, blah, blah. And they come in, they're like, whoa, and it's different. You're like, yes. And that is so powerful. I literally give away free treatments sometimes when someone's tried it legit and I didn't make a difference,
Yeah.
but I still think I have something. And
That
then
is
sometimes it makes a
remarkable.
difference. And that why is awesome because when someone has run out of things and comes
Yeah.
back and goes, let me try this and it works,
Yeah.
everyone's so happy.
Beautiful. Wow. That is so great. Well, I think we covered a lot. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you so much. Thank you. And like I said, the information for how to reach you will be in the show notes. So anybody that
cool.
wants to talk to Akil, I would absolutely encourage you to do that. I've been treated by you. I had a great experience. Thank you so much.
Well, great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, Akil. Thanks for tuning in to the Green Living Now podcast. If you're ready to detox your food and your home and make healthier choices without stress and confusion, join my free 5-day Green Living Kickstart Challenge. In just 5 days, you'll take quick, impactful steps to reduce toxins and create a cleaner, greener lifestyle. If you want to go even deeper, check out my Organic Food Blueprint course, where I uncover hidden food toxins, the industry's biggest secrets, and real strategies for living healthier without breaking the bank. So you'll learn how to decode labels, shop smarter, and ensure that your food and water are truly safe. So get started today at greenlivingnow.com. Let's create a healthier, greener world one step at a time. And until next time, stay inspired, empowered, and stay green.